You are once again welcome to Inyima Biafra TV, Treasury of Excellent Knowledge. I am your serviceable servant evangelist, Inyima Kanu. I greet you on my personal behalf, and I greet you on the behalf of the Lord, the owner, the creator, the Messiah, and the Redeemer of the whole universe, Jesus the Christ. And I said to you, special good morning. It is just 18 minutes to 12 noon. And that is 11:42 a.m. Today being Monday. I am live and direct. Today being Monday, the 25th of this month of July 2022. Without further delay, I want to talk on the issue regarding the topic on the screen. Why the UN wants to release MAZI NNAMDI KANU. We all know that MAZI NNAMDI KANU was extraordinarily rendited. MAZI NNAMDI KANU, the leader of we, the indigenous people of Biafra, known as IPOB worldwide, our leader MAZI NNAMDI KANU, being extraordinarily rendited. What I mean is he was kidnapped by hoodlums in the Nigerian army or in the Nigerian police. By hoodlums, he was kidnapped from Kenya to Nigeria, where he had been incarcerated for over 1 year now. This incident took place last year, June, but we are now in July of the following year. That is to say, his extraordinary rendition happened in June 2021. But now we are already in July 2021, which had made it over 1 year, 1 month that it really happened. And the UN, United Nations, had not done anything significant to releasing MAZI NNAMDI KANU until all of a sudden right now we are hearing a new news about the attempt of the United Nations UN to releasing MAZI NNAMDI KANU. Then another related issue to it is that some of our IPOB comrades and many more Biafrans have been celebrating the move of the United Nations. And the IPOB political solutionist under the DOS may attribute it to the result of their outing to Brussels in Belgium. But I am not just trying to criticize their campaign in Brussels, no, so that people will not misunderstand, misinterpret, and misquote me. But I am about setting the record straight for us not to succeed to deceiving ourselves while believing we are doing the real things. Well, no, so that is what I want to avoid. I also want our people to have the right understanding of what is actually playing out regarding the attempt or the move of the United Nations UN to releasing MAZI NNAMDI KANU, where he had been illegally incarcerated in the Nigerian DSS custody for a year and a month. So we have come to reflect, because when I heard the news, I quickly know, because it is something that I already know. I quickly understand that the UN must have their interest to releasing MAZI NNAMDI KANU. The UN can never release MAZI NNAMDI KANU just like that without having any interest, unless we the Biafrans fight for MAZI NNAMDI KANU's release. Then we get the endorsement from the UN before they can release MAZI NNAMDI KANU unconditionally. And the UN have been keeping quiet all along since MAZI NNAMDI KANU was ordinarily rendited until now that they have begun to talk about it. Then we should first of all ask ourselves, why had they kept quiet all along until now? Why have they not been speaking all this while until now? Why did they suddenly rise up to try to release MAZI NNAMDI KANU unconditionally? Should we always let the oppressors determine the tone of our music? And why should we be doing so? Should we always verify, investigate the oppressors' moves in all ramifications, in all situations, and at all time? I think, and I am convinced that the best thing we should be doing is to be investigating the oppressors with their modus operandi and their individual and collective activities, for us not to be misled, for us not to be deluded, for them not to fake anything to give to us and we accept it happily. So we have come to rationalize this matter. Then some of our people celebrated it, while some are yet to celebrate it. But I had never and I will never celebrate it because, as I've said earlier, the United Nations can never release MAZI NNAMDI KANU unconditionally if they have no interest in that release. So I was reflecting on what should be the interest of the UN, and I came finally to identify one of their interests, and it is a major interest. And from where they developed their interest, it is because of the circumstances at hand. The war between Russia and Ukraine, or the war in Ukraine, the invasion of the Russians into Ukraine, and the involvement of the NATO and many European countries individually to supporting Ukraine against Russia. So as I speak, Russia now is threatening to cease to be supplied, to continue to supply oil, that is crude oil and refined oil or oil products. Like, for example, we talk about specifically in this video, we talk about engine oil. Then there are other oil, as we know, that are produced from crude oil. Russia is threatening to cease from supplying the European countries who are against them and in support of Ukraine concerning their current situation. And the UN do not want to quit. I mean, the European unions do not want to quit from supporting Ukraine as a result of their interest and their own benefits. Now, it happens that they have a plan B. And the plan B is that they want to change their transaction relations from Russia to Africa. And we know that Africa had been under slavery and is still under slavery until today, and they've been enslaved by many of these European countries, including America, the Westerners. And now with the inclusion of the Asian countries like China, Korea, Japanese, and the rest of them, rest of them who are involved into colonizing and enslaving Africa. So the UN is trying to form a plan B to boycott Russia, to boycott Russia's oil sales or oil supply to the affected countries in Europe or perhaps some other countries around the world. So the plan B now from the UN is coming to Africa and to find a medium to penetrate with the Africans to be getting the supply of oil from Africa. So one thing that has triggered me is not about changing the direction, it is about the manipulation. The manipulation in the sense that the Europeans, like the Britain most especially, had been taken and they are still grabbing our oil on a daily basis. They are grabbing it on a daily basis and they grab up to the 90 or 95% go to them, while to only about 5% remain with the Nigerian federal government. And the 5% is not even used to develop the Nigeria, rather it is being embezzled. The money sold in the 5% is being embezzled by the Nigerian politicians. Now, since we have been under this condition for centuries, what is our fate with this change, with this new change of stoppage of the purchase of oil from Russia by the European countries to Africa? So we begin to speculate and we begin to envisage that it is all about trying to come and, as usual, to influence African leaders, influence both our states and the national government to help them to be exporting African oil for Africans to be supplying them with free oil. It has always been free. Now they are going to increase it because it might probably be 5 European or 7 European countries that have been uh, benefiting from this free access to African oil. But now that the Russia is trying to cut off her oil supply to European countries, then they will be channeled to Africa. The rest of the European countries will be channeled to Africa, which means the exportation, free exportation of oil from Africa to European countries will increase from 5% to 25, from 5% to 25%, or from 5 countries to 25 countries. But under normal circumstances, there should be a proper transaction whereby we, the Africans, will be selling the oil to the European countries. We make our huge amount of money from it, and we develop our territories with what we get. But the case is not as I've explained. It is all about manipulation, influencing Africans, then to continue to be grabbing it fivefold than ever before, and totally free of charge. Then they will just find little crumbs to settle those in the position of leadership in Africa, while the exploitation continues. So I am saying this for our people to actually understand the ulterior motive behind the UN trying to release MAZI NNAMDI KANU. It is about trying to appease the Africans, most especially we the Biafrans and the IPOB to be specific. It is trying to appease us to release MAZI NNAMDI KANU. Yes, we need MAZI NNAMDI KANU's release. But why can't the UN give the Nigeria ultimatum to release MAZI NNAMDI KANU unconditionally without any selfish interest? They have said it with their mouth. They never pronounce their selfish interest. But we have come to discover the selfish interest behind the move of the UN to releasing MAZI NNAMDI KANU. We actually need MAZI NNAMDI KANU's release. Yes, we need him. We need him, and we demand for his release. But aftermath of the release will be more disastrous than what we are experiencing now, because all of their aim is coming to take over our land, and that is one of the ulterior motives to releasing MAZI NNAMDI KANU. And the scarcity of oil and the scarcity of upcoming scarcity of food will trigger are the things triggering the move of the UN trying to release MAZI NNAMDI KANU. The food they can no longer plant on themselves, and the supply they can no longer get from their fellow European countries among them, then they will channel it to Africa, and their aim will be to be coming Africa, to be grabbing our forest, our lands, to be farming and exporting the farm products to Europe. And as the time continues, they will begin to export their European citizens to Africa, where they will live and settle forever. And these are the means is to taking over our land. And they are using the Fulani. The Britain have been using the Fulanis. So I'm saying this for our people to know that that is according to the plan. Even if MAZI NNAMDI KANU is released any moment now, there will be increase of terrorism, because these people will set all of their eyes, all their focus, all of their ambition, all of their interest in Africa, and more precisely Biafra land, because MAZI NNAMDI KANU is a Biafran and the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, which are we, the IPOB. And this oil supply and the oil deposits are more located. The oil deposits from where the Europeans will be taking this oil are more located in Biafra land. So these are the ulterior motives behind MAZI NNAMDI KANU's release, for our people to be aware. We should not be celebrating anything presented to us. You know, when people do not actually know what they want, they open their hands very wide to accept anything offered them. But when people actually know what they want, they make their choice properly. So I want us to look at this video. I will be streaming from this video. I got this video from Joseph Okechukwu, and he made this video 21 hours ago. This is part 1, and about 15 hours later on he had made the part 2. Then this part 1 is a 20 minutes 40 seconds video, which I will play from his 14 minutes 40 seconds. I will play it to the end. Then I will play the second one from the beginning to the end. The second one is 20-something minutes videos also. I will play it to the full so that you hear in detail how things had happened. And he never made mention of MAZI NNAMDI KANU's release, but I am attributing it to one of the reasons, one of the motives for the UN attempting to release MAZI NNAMDI KANU. It is not all for our benefit. It is much more of their interest, and they will benefit more if they release MAZI. The reason they only want to release MAZI NNAMDI KANU is to appease us, so that as they will come and they continue to come to exploit our resources, we will just happily be permitting them. And they will also be using those our stooge leaders, those our stooge politicians. These are the people they will also be using. And as a result of MAZI NNAMDI KANU's release, our people may not be worried anymore to checkmate them. But if we do not checkmate them and control what we really have, it will be far more disastrous to us, and it will be too late for us when we begin to suffer the consequences. So our people should be prepared. And also, I want to remind the autopiloters led by Simon Ekpa that this is the time, and their time has come. You know, they have been talking about economic sanction, and the stoppage of oil flow in Biafra land is one of the methods of this economic sanction in Biafra land, as having been campaigned by Simon Ekpa in several locations. And it has seemed that that advert and our expectation are going down. That campaign and our expectations are going down, but this is the time to rekindle the fire. And it is necessary that the autopiloters begin to do as they have promised. And we will also applaud them if they do so, We will also come to talk about them, to talk about their failure if they fail to do so. So without further delay, I will play the video. I'll play the video so that we will hear it in detail.
Maynard Chief, they'd be better off giving Hunter Biden his crack pipe and putting him up on stage to debate Trump. At this point, he'd probably be more coherent than his father.
Chaka check. I actually believe that they've always known that Joe Biden was not going to last till the end of his first term in office. I think Joe Biden was just acting as a placeholder for the Obamas, okay? And that's why at the end of the day, as we now speak about who will take over from Joe Biden, we are mentioning Michelle Obama, we are mentioning Hillary Clinton, we are mentioning Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was told that she was going to take over if anything happens to Biden. But then it turned out that Kamala Harris now being sidelined. I explained this in one of the videos I posted recently. So what is happening is that at the end of the day, if care is not taken before midterms this year, Joe Biden may be kicked out of office, and either Kamala Harris finds a way to take over if they finally change their mind over her, or you're going to have Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton taking over from Biden. And when that happens, if you thought that you saw a weakened American economy, if you thought that you saw hardship under Joe Biden, if you thought that you saw high gas prices and empty shelves under Joe Biden, wait till you see what happens when the next person who comes to take over eventually takes over from him.
Why are you wasting your time on YouTube when you could be building an online business? I know what you're thinking. I don't have time for this. I've got a family and I got a full-time job.
And who comes to take over eventually takes over from him. You see, there's another video again I'm going to show you that will help you to understand what is planned in the long run. Everything you see happening is part of a gigantic, monstrous plan to crumble the global economy and to throw humanity into the kind of suffering that many of us had never envisaged or imagined possible. That's why you're going to see so much scarcity of food, scarcity of diesel and diesel oil, scarcity of almost everything that you need to make your life worth living on earth. There will be scarcity of all those things because a totalitarian regime is about to be born. It's actually been born already. That's why Joe Biden is about to declare a climate emergency. Why? Because there is heat waves all over Europe and America. You want to declare climate emergency. Americans are already suffering blackouts like Nigeria. Can you imagine? In parts of Texas, Houston, Dallas, I saw the tweet, I shared it with people. They're having blackouts. And Biden is proposing to start building like community cooling centers where people can go to get cooled from the heat wave. You know, the heat wave is such a big deal right now in Europe. Fire is burning everywhere. And so it's an emergency. So Biden wants to use his executive powers to impose a climate emergency and then stop the drilling and all those other basic things that people have always been used to that actually helps life on earth. They want you to embrace your green energy. And I have that clip coming. I'm going to share that after this video. You're going to see that video so you can see the plans they have for humanity. Have you started learning how to save your money? Have you started learning how to stock up on food? Have you started learning how to do without certain things? Are you learning? Are you learning? They want to take us back to Stone Age. There are programs on National Geographic Channel, Live Free or Die. These things are telling you how to survive in some of the most difficult circumstances and situations. These things are not by accident. They are pointers to what is coming. That's why when you watch this other video I'm about to show you on diesel and diesel oil and why the scarcity is going to stay for a very long time, it's going to be like almost another lockdown. Why you watch that, I want you to begin to think, what can I do to adjust properly so that when what is about to happen happens, it will not affect me as gravely as it would have if I had not prepared.
So that's the end of the first video. Then I will play the second video from the beginning to the end, and that should be another 20-something minutes video. Then thereafter, the program will end.
On top of all the other supply chain disasters that we're familiar with, dwindling food supply, diesel fuel running out on the East Coast, agricultural parts not available at any price. On top of that, we have a new crisis that is the worst of all of these. And I've done a lot of due diligence on this, and it's all true. And I'm going to play for you a 2-minute video first from a gentleman who is involved in the transportation industry. And he's going to explain what this crisis is and what matters. And then after that, I'll come back and give you more details, sources, and links, and frankly, open admissions within the industry that this is happening. And then we'll talk about the consequences of this, which will be absolutely devastating for not just the United States, but the entire world. So let's start with this 2-minute video first. Here we go.
1540 engine oil, or actually any of the diesel engine oils, are soon to become unavailable. You've probably already noticed that there seems to be some kind of a shortage out there on engine oils. It's hard to find. Rotella, for example, and Delvac are almost non-existent. The reason is because they're literally non-existent. Rotella has announced not even producing oil right now. The reason is because they have to have a certain additive package for it to be diesel engine oil. And the two producers of that additive are Chevron and Lipizol. Both of those companies, that's it. They're the only ones that produce the additive packages worldwide. 2 companies. So it doesn't matter what kind of oil that you buy, you're getting an additive package from one of those 2 companies. The problem is that both of those companies are out of those additive packages. They don't have any. And they're predicting that it's going to be an entire year before they're able to come back online and start producing additive packages so all these other companies can produce their oil again. I wanted it to sink in what I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you there is going to be no diesel engine oil for an entire year available at all. Period. So unless your truck can run for an entire year on a change of oil, you need to get some oil. Whatever it takes. If you want to continue to operate, you need at least a year's worth of oil sitting in the garage or in the shop. If you're a farmer, get some oil. You need to buy quite a few barrels. I'm going to buy about 16 barrels. It's about what I can afford right now, and squirrel it away. It's going to become the most hottest commodity you've ever seen over the next couple of months. Anywhere from the next 4 weeks to 8 weeks, it's going to go from scarcity to non-existent. Get some oil, get it quick.
So as you just heard in that video, 15 weight 40 diesel engine oil is about to be completely wiped out of supply. But of course, when I saw that video, I didn't just take that man's word for it. I don't know that guy. You probably don't know him either. Is he telling the truth? Is this real? So I did a couple of things. I called up my source for bulk engine oil because I operate a ranch in Texas and I purchase oil in 55-gallon drums. And I purchase, for example, tractor hydraulic fluid in 55-gallon drums. So I called my supplier who normally has this in stock and I said, hey, I would like to buy 2 more 55-gallon drums of 15 weight 40 diesel engine oil. And he said, well, I could give you 1 drum, but not 2. And I asked why. He said, because we're rationing, because the supply chain of diesel engine oil is being wiped out, and we don't think we're going to have any after about the beginning of August. I said, you got to be kidding me. Diesel engine oil is running out? I mean, how is Texas going to operate? Because we need engine oil for not just long-haul trucking and transportation, but also for tractors and construction equipment, skid steers, excavators, track loaders, dump trucks, all of it. And of course, just regular diesel trucks need diesel engine oil. And he said, well, none of us are sure. We're hoping there's going to be supply back online. But what we're looking at right now is that this is all going to be gone in the next 2 months or so. And that, of course, lines up with what the gentleman said in the first video there that we played. So now I'm getting very concerned. So I went out online and I did some more searching. I decided to look at bulk retailers of oil products that sell at the commercial level or the agricultural level. They sell in 55-gallon drums. And I found a company called Buy Sinopec, SINOPEC. And that's their website, buysinopec.com. And they had an alert on their homepage. Diesel oil price list while supplies last. Quote, we expect to stock out of diesel oil products in the month of June of 2022 and resume back with inventory in the first quarter of 2023. Now, excuse the kind of broken English that they're using. Obviously, whoever runs that site, maybe English is their second language, which is fine. But you get the idea. They're saying that diesel oil, this is engine oil for diesel engines, is running out. Now, that webpage from buysinopec.com goes on to explain that the raw materials for producing base oil for lubricants are in short supply, and that this has led to a worldwide shortage of base oils. Now, to understand what they mean about base oils, you need to understand how engine oil is manufactured. It's really a combination of 2 categories of ingredients. First, you have base oils, which can start with paraffin or synthetic oils. And then you have additives. And this is what the gentleman was talking about in the video we saw earlier. The additives include anti-wear additives. These are special chemicals that achieve certain chemistry goals inside the engine. They can be friction modifiers, dispersants, detergents, anti-foaming agents, even antioxidants, and so on. So these special additives come out of very specialized chemical factories. And when you don't have these additives available, you can't produce the final engine oil product, even if you have base oils. And as I understand it, and what we're sharing here, is that there are shortages in both of these categories. So there's a shortage in base oils and there's a shortage in additives. And as this company, Buy Sinopec, is saying, they're not going to have inventory until 2023. And the gentleman we heard from earlier said it's going to be about a year out before diesel engine oil is available again. Now, why is this happening? Well, I read for you from the Buy Sinopec website, and remember that a little bit of broken English there, so excuse the grammar. But they say because of the corona pandemic, there's less demand worldwide for fuel for road traffic and especially paraffin that's used for aviation. So the demand for paraffin is now 82% less than it was before the coronavirus, I think is what they're saying. It goes on to say that many crude oil producers postponed their planned maintenance in 2020 because of the pandemic, because they didn't have workers because of the lockdowns, which were designed, of course, to destroy the economy, but we'll get to that later. They continue, quote, they are now shutting down to carry out critical maintenance activities, further reducing global supply. And then there was the severe winter in the Gulf Coast. So they write, in February of this year, 2022, the Gulf Coast region of the US was hit by unprecedented severe cold winter weather. This caused shortages in the chemicals and raw materials needed for the production of the additives that go into lubricants. And several major additive suppliers declared force majeure after their raw material suppliers invoked force majeure due to the extreme weather conditions. So, in other words, radical weather, it was too cold, caused production problems, bankrupting certain companies that provided specific chemical molecules to the additive manufacturers. And so those chemicals were not made available. And they just declared force majeure, act of God, cold weather. They shut down. They're out of business, can no longer produce. So now the diesel engine oil, the final product that you need, there aren't additives available because the additive manufacturers can't get the chemicals from these companies that declared force majeure. And of course, it just rippled all the way through the supply chain. Now, this news has not really hit the United States yet, which is astonishing to me. And it just shows the level of censorship in corporate media and by big tech. It demonstrates the fact that those of you who pay attention to alternative media, you are months ahead of the oblivious masses when it comes to being informed. And I urge you to take advantage of this glimpse into the future that's coming. And I'm going to explain here what this means and how you can use this knowledge right now to reduce the harm and disruption to yourself and your family and perhaps your company, because this disruption is going to be devastating to the US economy and the world economy. And as proof of this, I bring you this story from June 16th, not that long ago, out of Sri Lanka. Engine oil shortage threatens future train travel. It's from newsfirst.lk. Sri Lanka. All right, now you may recall that in Sri Lanka right now there are massive protests and uprisings and riots because Sri Lanka has defaulted on its debt. And Sri Lanka has a shortage of diesel fuel, gasoline, food, and medicine. So things are not good in Sri Lanka, but now it's going to get even worse. Here's from the story. Quote, Sri Lanka Railways said that it will not be possible to operate trains in the future due to the lack of engine oil. A senior official at Sri Lanka Railways said that the current level of engine oil would only last for another 2 months because, of course, you have to change the oil in the massive diesel engines that run the diesel electric trains, right? I mean, all the trains in America are also diesel electric trains, except there might be a few exceptions in museums or something that still run on, coal or something. There might be some electric commuter trains, but the real transport trains that carry fertilizer and food and fuel and coal all across America, they run on diesel, and they have massive diesel engines, and those engines use diesel engine oil, and you have to change that oil or you lose the engine. So continuing from the story, the Department of Railways said that engine oil is important to Sri Lanka from India and China, and the department pointed out that the dollar shortage has made it impossible to open letters of credit for this purpose. In other words, because they've had an economic collapse, they can't get letters of credit to buy diesel engine oil from India or China to keep their trains running. So you see how the economic collapse is rippling into the transportation infrastructure. And then the last sentence from this story, quote, in such a situation, several trains currently in operation will have to be taken out of service, he further said. In other words, no engine oil, you have to take the trains offline. You can't run them with dirty oil, or you'll lose the engine. And so what we're witnessing here in Sri Lanka is just a little microcosm of what is about to happen in America and around the world. No oil for the diesel engines means no diesel engines, which means no transportation. And this is what we need to understand. This is what the gentleman at the beginning of this video was trying to tell you, trying to red pill you, so to speak, to help you realize what's about to happen in the United States and around the world as the global supply of diesel engine oil dries up. Now, the typical masses, what I call the oblivious masses, they have no idea where anything comes from. That's why the greenies who promote electric vehicles, they don't even know that the electricity comes from coal. They think electricity comes out of buildings magically. They don't understand anything about any supply chain or where things come from or where things go. And so they have no clue that the food in the grocery store comes from a truck that has a diesel engine. And that diesel engine needs diesel engine oil. And in about 2 months, that diesel engine oil is going to be gone in America. So we'll start with this example. What do you suppose happens to the food shelves when there's no more diesel engine oil in America? And the answer is pretty obvious. One by one, the diesel trucks get taken off the roads. They get shut down because you can't drive it without changing the oil. So however many trucks are running on the highways right now, let's say it's, 100,000 trucks, just to pick a number out of the air. If it's 100,000 trucks now, well, how often do you have to change the oil on a truck? Well, a typical 18-wheeler rig on the highway, it can go about 25,000 miles before it has to change the engine oil. That's a lot more than your typical car, but these trucks are built differently. They can go a lot longer without changing the oil. So 25,000 miles, they need an oil change. And in any snapshot of time, all the different trucks out there are at different checkpoints in their oil change schedule. So some trucks may have to change their oil in 1 week. Others may be able to change their oil in 4 weeks. Others, in 6 weeks and so on. But you see, the typical 18-wheeler truck, they put about 2,500 miles on it per week. So 2,500 miles per week and 25,000 miles is when you need to change the oil. So that means if you have brand new fresh engine oil in your diesel truck 18-wheeler, you can go a maximum of 10 weeks before you need more engine oil. Got that? A maximum of 10 weeks. And you could say that if the oil change schedule is evenly distributed across these 10 weeks, you could say that in any given week, for each 1 week, about 10% of the trucks have to change their oil. Does that make sense? So in other words, if we have no engine oil available at all, then each week about 10% of the trucks are going to be taken off the road. And within 10 weeks total, there will be no more trucks on the roads. This is all going to begin in August, according to the information we have today. And that means that roughly by, let's say, the end of October or the beginning of November, unless this diesel engine oil problem is resolved, there will be no more diesel engine trucks operating on the highways. And again, during each week from August through the end of October, about 10% of the trucks will have to be taken off the highways. What do you suppose that's going to do to the supply chain? Deliveries of food, deliveries of consumer goods. How will the shelves be restocked at Home Depot or Costco or your local grocery store? And the answer is they won't. They won't. Unless there is a replacement for this diesel engine oil, there will be no transportation. And by the way, when this shortage kicks in, we can't assume that all the trucks on the road have just recently changed their oil. We can't assume that they have a fresh oil supply. So some trucks are going to be taken offline within 1 week after the shortage really kicks in. Others in the second week, others in the third week, and so on. So this is going to start hurting bad in August. You might say, well, maybe they can use trains. They can just ship goods on trains. Well, the trains run on diesel because, of course, they are diesel electric trains, as we talked about earlier. So the trains, they use about, 3,000 plus gallons of diesel at a time, by the way. And I've already heard from a source that's in the diesel locomotive industry that there's not enough diesel fuel to refill the trains in certain areas in America right now. That's separate from the diesel engine oil issue. There's not even enough diesel fuel. And you may have already heard also that there's a diesel fuel shortage on the East Coast. And that's separate from diesel engine oil running out roughly in the August timeframe. And by the way, that's also separate from the DEF shortage that's already happening. That's diesel emissions fluid. And modern diesel engines have to use DEF in order to reduce emissions. And if you don't have this DEF, you can't run diesel engines. And DEF, by the way, is simply a combination of high purity urea, which is a nitrogen-rich source that's used for fertilizer, also combined with deionized water. which is something I'm very familiar with because I own several water deionizers that I use in my laboratory. So someone like myself, just because I happen to own a lab, I can buy urea and I can make DEF fluid by combining it with deionized water. But the typical truck driver or agricultural equipment operator or construction operator, they don't have a water deionizer and they may not have urea, so they can't make DEF fluid. So now we've got 3 critical supplies that are running out for diesel engines. They can't get the diesel fuel, they can't get the diesel engine oil coming up in about 8 weeks, let's say, and there are shortage problems with the diesel emissions fluid, DEF. If you are missing one of these 3, you can't operate your diesel engine. You have to have all 3. Well, unless, of course, you were wise enough to purchase, let's say, old John Deere tractors. I'm laughing because that's what I have done, that do not have DEF fluid emissions controls on them. The bottom line is we are witnessing the controlled demolition of the food industry and also the energy industry. So what happens later this year if there's no diesel engine oil? What happens?
So that's it. Great Biafrans and the world at large. That's it. I have played the video and you have heard it in full. It is mostly about the food, predicted food and the oil shortage against the European Union countries. This is one of the reasons they are trying to use the key to convincing the UN to release MAZI NNAMDI KANU, to see it as a medium for them to descend on Africa for food and oil exploitation. Though they have been doing that, but for them to have increase of it, because the number of the countries who will depend on Africa will be more numerous. But according to the blessings God had deposited in Africa as in natural potentials, if Africa is well developed, we can also accommodate many people transacting with people. But the problem there is that due to human greediness and that of the colonialists, most especially, they want to get everything free. They want to get everything, and they want everything for them alone. That is where the problems lies, and that is the reason they do not want to go the legitimate way, because MAZI NNAMDI KANU's release is just a total different from this issue. They have not said anything about this, but this is bringing our people a foreknotice. A foreknotice. This video is an act of proactiveness to inform our people in advance of what is to come, of the plans these people have against us, and for our people to always be at alert and be vigilant regarding the whole situation. And it is our collective responsibility to protect our land and to control every resources in our land and to transact with whomsoever that wills, based on agreed law of the people, because power actually belongs to the people and not to criminals, not to cliques, not to the political cabals, not to colonialists, but the people of the land. So may God bless you as the program has just come to an end. Until I come your way once again, I remain your servant, Evangelist Inyima Kalu. Also, do subscribe to my new YouTube channel, Evangelist Inyima Kalu, and it is on that YouTube channel I have my Christian teachings. Though I have begun to invest on Christian teachings, so if I'll have time today, I will come back again. If I do not, tomorrow definitely I will have I'll have a Christian teaching. So do subscribe to that YouTube channel with the name Evangelist Inyima Kalu. And remain blessed and bye for now.